If I had to bet on one SQL pattern that shows up in almost in every single data interview, it is this one. Finding what did not happen, which is basically means finding customers who never ordered, finding products that never sold. So today I am walking through 5 real questions on this exact pattern, from the easiest version all the way to the one that actually separates strong candidates from average ones in a real interview. So let's get into it. So for the purpose of this project, I have added sample data tables, which for this episode is more of understanding left join anti pattern, and the 5 sample tables for all these 5 questions are like the customer table, and we have a product table, and then orders table, and added couple of entries into the orders table. Then we have company table, similarly added a company, couple of companies, and the salesperson table. So this is a sample data that just for the purpose of the video. And let's now discuss on the first question. For the first question is more of a most commonly asked question, is to find all customers who have never placed an order. So whenever I've noticed in an interview, it is always advisable to start writing out what you think about the query. If you just start writing the SQL query, you will mess it up. So the first and foremost I usually write to understand is the 5 levels of details. That is, first and foremost, write the output columns, that's the customer name, and then the grain, that is the level of detail that the result has to give. So here we are only asking customers who never ordered, so we just have to have a customer column. And the tables needed, so since it's customers who never ordered, so we'll be using two tables, which is the customer table and the orders table. And the filter is to find the ones with no matching order. And for aggregation and date logic, we don't have anything on this question, so it's none. So if you write this pattern, this way of writing the pattern, then it's easier to write the query, you won't make any mistakes. So the first and foremost, so the query here is to see is the query here is select C dot name from customer C, left join on orders on the two of the columns customer ID from their respective tables where the order ID is null. So here we will be getting a expected result, which is Frank. So if I run this, you see we have the name Frank. So this before that, I also wanted to inform, this is a DB Fiddle website that you can add in your own sample database and play around on SQL. So it's much more easier way to demonstrate and practice your own SQL queries. Now for the second one, so for the second question is similar question, but on a different table. So the second question here is more of finding out the products that were never ordered. So if you see, it's more of like an identical structure to the question one, and uh, and you actually have to just learn the pattern. You don't have to memorize one answer for this. So the pattern is the same. So just get the product name from the two tables, product, left join on orders, and you're joining on product ID from both the tables where the order ID is null. So it's a pattern that you need to learn rather than memorizing your query result queries. So when you run this query, the expected answer has to be webcam. That's the product name, webcam. So that's about it for the second question. Now when we come for the third question, now there is a bit of a twist in that actually shows up in real interviews, is to when they ask questions like find the salesperson who did not have any orders related to a specific company, and for this specific question it's red. So if they ask a question similar to that, you will have to like check on the missing match. So for example, here you are checking for a missing match to a specific something that's specific. So the left join, it gets more different here. A subquery with a not in is more cleaner, and so the first and foremost is to isolate exactly who did sell to red and then exclude them. So in this same underlining idea, same identity idea when compared to how the left join was used, but the tool has changed. So knowing which format you have to use is what separates learning a pattern versus memorizing an answer from a real understanding. So here in this, you can find that the query we written has select name from salesperson, where sales ID not in, select where the sales ID not in within the subquery, that is select sales ID from sales order, join the company and on the com ID where the company name is red. So now you get all the salesperson who are not associated with the company name red, and then you get the name. So here the expected result is supposed to be Omar and Priya, which is what we have. So that's about it for the third question. Now for the fourth question, it's more of flipping the logic in a interesting way. So this is to find customers who has bought every single product. So because we now we want to find out people who have had all the products purchased, and this is different from the questions that we saw from 1 to 3. So the cleanest way to think about this is count how many distinct products each customer bought and then compare that to the total number of products that exist. So if they match, then the product has no gap. Now you might ask, like, why am I putting this particular question into this into this episode? The reality is that this question still is part of the missing data kind of pattern, but you're just measuring the completeness instead of its absence. So here the query would more likely be select customer ID from orders, group by customer ID, having the count. Now you have to use having clause and count the distinct product ID. Now the count distinct product ID gets all the unique values count of the products, and then now equating it with another query which is select count of distinct product ID from orders. Now this helps in identifying the count that match exactly with the total number of unique products in the orders table. So as here I've noted also that the webcam has 0 orders, so it's get excluded from the total count. So the expected result is customer ID 3. She has bought all the 4 products. She has bought all the 4 products that that has any orders. Now finally for the fifth question, this is a most likely asked question, and it's mostly of the range medium in the lead code section of the SQL website. So the question is generally asked as customers who has bought A and B but not C. So the cleanest approach is to use a conditional aggregation with having to confirm that they both bought A and B and not in, and using a not in to find the customers who are associated with C. So this way we can identify the customer who have essentially bought A and B and not C. So the query would look like select customer ID from orders where product in A comma B, group by customer ID, having the count of distinct equal to 2, because here we are only having 2 products that needs to be bought. And then the customer ID not in the customers from the order table where product is equal to C. Now when you run this query, you get the expected answer to be Bob, who has bought A and B and never bought C. So notice that this question is exactly question 1, 3 and 4 infused in a single problem, and that is exactly how most of the questions are built and not new tricks or any different questions. It's more likely a familiar patterns combined together. Here is a one idea that makes all 5 of these easy. Normal join only keeps matches. Left join keeps everything from one side whether or not it has a match. So if you want to find what is missing, you most likely need a left join and then filter for where the matches come back empty, which is null. Across all 5 of these, here is the mistake I see the most. People filter on the wrong number of columns or the wrong columns after a left join, and also filters on a column guaranteed to be null only when the join found nothing. So this usually the primary key of the table you joined onto, like an order ID or a customer ID. So 5 questions and one core idea. Left join plus null to find what is missing, and not in with a subquery when the missing condition gets specific. So this is an episode 1 of a new series, which is a SQL interview related series, and here we are going to understand the pattern unlike all the summarization or memorizing the answers for each of these queries. So now you have seen 5 real questions every episode, and the next up will be most probably covering up the group by when having clauses. So subscribe so you can catch it, and tell me in the comments which of these 5 you have gotten wrong in a live interview or have also come across in an interview. So this is exactly why I'm making this series, to let's discuss together in understanding what different questions are being discussed in the interview. See you soon.